Welcome to the All49ers Roundtable, the postponed All49ers Roundtable. We were going to do one last night until someone reminded me that the Niners were doing that state of the franchise, which we learned so much from. So we postponed, and now we're going to be talking about what we learned from that groundbreaking event. My name is Grant Cohn. I'm joined by Jackhammer, Suneil Gaitonde, and Big Ben Meyerson. I don't know why I call him Big Ben Meyerson, but I like to. He's a good writer. All three of these guys write for All49ers. Check them out. So let's start with the takeaway from this state of the franchise. This is my takeaway. I'm going to run it by you guys, and I want you guys to tell me why I'm wrong or if I'm wrong. Because there wasn't much substance at this thing, but there was a moment when Greg Papa asked John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan if this roster is better than the one that lost in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Good question, Greg. And it's interesting because when it happened, I was thinking, let's see if Kyle and John say the same thing. Because this offseason, they've been kind of correcting each other politely here and there. So John goes first, as always. And John was a leader as a player. Gave a very motivational, yeah, I believe we are better, and we're going to prove it. And then Kyle goes, and I'm like, here comes the yeah, but. Here comes the yeah, but. Here comes the yeah, but. And he goes, yeah, I think we have a chance. But, and then he goes into all the reasons why they may not. Like, we got a bunch of young players who haven't proven it, and they got to step up, and And he just gives a laundry list of reasons to just curb your enthusiasm. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for being you. My question to you is he hedging his bets talking like that? I mean, this really is year 5 of his administration, if we're going to call it that. Jack, why don't you start?
Yeah, I don't know if he's necessarily hedging his bets. I think his answer was pretty spot on when you really look at the roster. They have made some adjustments on paper. You could say they're better than 2019, but that's based off of guys that we haven't actually seen on the field being able to play at a high level. Is Aaron Banks really going to be an upgrade at right guard? We're not quite sure yet. We haven't seen him on the field. What's Trey Lance going to do? Is Trey Lance going to be able to come on and take the quarterback job and be that guy? We don't know that yet. Ambry Thomas, Trey Sermon, all those guys. So where he's coming from there, I totally agree with Kyle Shanahan in that I don't think we can say right now that this roster is better than 2019. I think it's better than 2020, but I don't think we can say it's better than that 2019 roster. Also, Samson Ebukam, we think he's going to be able to do everything that D4 did, but we're not sure yet. And we also don't know really what Nick Bosa is going to bring coming off of that knee injury. So there's a lot of questions around this team that make Kyle Shanahan's answer make more sense to me. And my biggest takeaway from that, if it's okay to go on, is I think it shows a difference in their status with the organization between John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Mm-hmm. I think if you look at John Lynch, they have Adam Peters in place to replace him if they decide to move on from him if this season goes horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can say the same thing with Kyle Shanahan. They're not going to move on from him. If this is a bad season, because anybody will pick him up. I just don't see that happening. But I think that kind of plays into both of their answers as well. They're hedging their bets for themselves.
Yes. Suneil.
Yeah.
Nice beard.
Thanks, man.
And polo.
I'm trying to grow it out,
But I'm just trying to butter up Suneil so he doesn't go too hard at me. Look great, man. Looking great.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I completely disagree with both of you guys on this take. All right. So I think that this was just their positions. John Lynch is the GM. He drafts the players, brings the players in, and then Kyle Shanahan is the coach. He develops the players. He makes the final roster decisions as far as who's a starter, who's on the bench, who gets cut. So when you are in John Lynch's position, you're going to be happy. This is all you could do. You could only bring in the players, and you believe you brought in the best players to make the best roster that's going to compete at the highest level. That's all you can do. Now, Kyle Shanahan can't sit here and be like, I have the best team I've ever had. Because if he said that, then it makes these players kind of feel like they've already arrived or they've already made it. As a coach, you constantly have to be dangling that carrot to these players to be like, you know what, we have a chance, but I still need to make sure these guys work hard. So these guys need to do better. These guys need to do better. These guys need to do better, and so on and so forth, because that's the position a coach plays. Now, I know a lot of people are looking in depth, and by a lot of people, I mean the two people on top of me right here this way, but are saying that, this is showing that John Lynch is not secure in his position and all this kind of stuff because he answered a question saying that I'm confident that I brought in the right people. What is he supposed to say? You know what? we didn't do as good as we did in 2019. So I'm not too excited about this team. No, he's going to be confident in the 49er faithful when he's talking to the fans to get them hyped up for the season. Everything was positive. Nobody's talking about the negatives of the team, the downsides of the team. I don't think John Lynch, or he might, I don't know if he is in the hot seat, but I don't think that this statement should make us feel like he feels like he's in the hot seat. Because if anything, if he was in the hot seat, he wouldn't be trading 3 first-round draft picks to make a move for the quarterback that they did. He wouldn't be doing those type of home run swings if he felt like he didn't have the confidence that he's going to be back next season, the season after that. And that's what I think it is. I think they're just playing out their contract. I don't think there's any John Lynch is doing a terrible job. I haven't heard that, nor do I feel he feels that way either.
So I'm gonna be somewhere in the middle on this. I just want to agree on or disagree on Suneil's last point, which was that I don't know. Actually, if you're a GM who's about to get fired, why wouldn't you throw all your first round picks at trading up for a quarterback? We saw what the Bears did a few years ago. We saw what the Rams did a few years ago with Goff. I mean, there are situations where front offices will put everything into that next quarterback. So I'll push back on that. But where I will fall on this issue is that I think, Kyle and John are just both doing their job, right? With John, the way you see him communicating, the way you see him talking, he's talking this roster up right now. He's talking about their depth. He's talking about all these kinds of things that he felt he added in the offseason. But then when you listen to Kyle's answer, you can tell how realistic Kyle is in understanding the situation that the team is in now. And a lot of people hung on to that last statement you were talking about, Grant, and you even wrote about it yourself, that whole last question. But what I kind of hung on to from all that interview was what Kyle said right before. I think about a minute before that answer was that he was talking about last season, right? And how by the end of the season, they were dealing with Arizona. They weren't even in their own practice facilities. And they realized that the cap was going to be shrinking due to COVID and that the window they thought they had was closing faster than they anticipated. So when I heard that to me told me that Kyle is more realistic about the outlook of this team and that they're not just 1 or 2 moves away from a Super Bowl, that they need to do more than just fixing a spot here or filling a hole there in order to get back to that 2019 team. The way Kyle was talking about it to me was realistic and understanding that you have to improve your team and you have to get better if you actually want to get to that end goal. So I think a lot of people were taking away that power struggle between the two. But when Kyle specifically said it, and if you go to that video, it's at the 17-minute mark, you can look it up. Kyle specifically says he thought the window they had shrunk a little bit when he knew the cap was going to be shrinking over the offseason. So when I hear that, I get really excited because it tells me that Kyle he's a realist right now. He's not just saying we need to go back and do what we did in 2019 again and just replace all those spots. He understands the problems with that team. And that's kind of the main takeaway I had from that entire thing.
Okay, so I hear you guys. You guys really respect Kyle Shanahan, and I respect him too. I respect your respect of Kyle Shanahan. There's a lot of respect going around right now, and I really admire how Niner fans are able to see his perspective and like it. Here's what I see, all right? And I'm not an anti-Kyle Shanahan guy. Here's what I felt like John Lynch struck the right tone. The question is this team better than the team 2 years ago? The answer is that's the expectation. End of story. That's the expectation. We're going to work our butts off to prove it. That's the answer. Of course the team's supposed to be better than it was 2 years ago. You've been building. What have you been doing? Of course that's the expectation. Lynch said it. And then Kyle comes in with the yeah buts. And he gives you all the reasons why maybe not. And I just feel like while he may be right, he's usually right. He's very smart. He's supposed to be motivational. And I don't find what he said to be motivational or inspirational. He gave you all the reasons why, maybe they might not win this year. And he could be right. But, dude, it's year 5 of your regime. You should be building something. I mean, you originally had a 6-year contract. The plan was a 6-year plan. And you're saying, well, we may or may not win this year, or at least that's the tone. So all I'm saying is it felt like a hedge to me. It didn't say we're definitely going to win this year. It's like if X, Y, and Z goes our way, we could win. And I feel like that's just not leadership. All you say is that's the expectation. We're going to work to prove it. End of freaking story. You didn't have Jim Harbaugh being like, well, a few things about our team. We got some young guys. It just say yes. End of story. So anyway, I don't want to start an argument with you guys because you guys were much more eloquent than I was. I just wanted to express my feelings. This is how I feel. And I'm not Kyle Shanahan's player. So maybe his players were all extremely motivated by his yeah, but speech. But I feel like they kind of take his tone like, hey, man, if Kyle doesn't necessarily think we got it this year, then we may not necessarily got it this year because Kyle's a genius and he wouldn't BS us. So that's all I'm saying. That's how I feel. But Kyle, there's always today to become the motivational leader of this. There's always the next day, man. And I just, all right.
Can I say one thing?
Go ahead.
One thing. So this state of the franchise.
You're always going to get the last word, huh?
Let me just say, I'm not going to go that hard. Okay, I'm just saying we got to pay attention to who the audience is.
True.
This audience isn't for the team. This isn't what he's saying in the locker room. This is what he's saying to guys like us so we could speak about it. This is what he's saying to the fans, so on and so forth. It's not how he is behind the scenes to his players. If there's any players that are looking at this and being like, man,
were you inspired? Were you inspired?
I thought this was phony and a joke. This whole thing about to the fans and all this kind of stuff. I didn't take anything away from it.
The main takeaway from this is that you can give the 49ers about $200 for a red throwback Niners jersey. Give them more money. They don't have enough. All right.
That's what it was for. Selling jerseys.
Hey, gotta love Jed York really does a good job printing money. He really does. You can't knock him for that. All right, let's switch subjects entirely. It's not necessarily a different subject. It's about the roster still. CBS says the Niners have the 16th best roster in the NFL. That's as mediocre as it gets. That's different than the way we talk about the Niners locally. The way we talk about the Niners locally is their roster can compete with anyone's roster when healthy, no matter who their quarterback is. I mean, at least this year, Lance and Garoppolo. Do you guys agree with CBS's ranking? What do you think? Ben, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so I think initially when I saw the Niners in the middle of the pack, I wasn't too hesitant to go one way or the other. But the more I dig into it, you actually think about it, if you look at the teams that CBS put ahead of the 49ers on that list we're talking about, it's teams like the Steelers, the Broncos, and the Dolphins.
The Broncos?
Yes. The Broncos. The Steelers are 9th on their list, Grant. It's insane. I don't know what they're basing this off. And if you look, a lot of their reasoning for a team like the Miami Dolphins is for like Tua Tagovailoa and Mike Gesicki, right? And Jalen Waddle, who I think Waddle's great. But the point is that I think if you look at the way people frame this and the way specifically this article talked about it, 49ers are much better than they should on this list. In fact, they should be top 10, 11, 12 in my opinion. So I don't really understand this idea that the 49ers have the 16th best roster in the NFL. I think all teams are dealing with health one way or the other. So when you kind of take away that factor from it, the 49ers should be much better than a middle-of-the-pack team. And if you're taking that into account even, like I said, there's 3 teams who I just named who I feel like the 49ers should be ahead of. So I just don't quite understand this list.
Yeah, I have to agree as well. I mean, there was 3 or 4 teams. One that I would add to the list that Ben said was like the Cowboys too. Being a better team or better roster than the 49ers with their questions at quarterback and how's that coming back, and then all the guys that have kind of aged at their positions and the contract issues that they have there as well. I thought that I didn't really understand because I thought once they listed they would put reasons why. As far as why they listed what they listed, but there was
so Suneil.
I know exactly right. So I think this is all because your channel is bigger than CBS's on when it comes to the Bay Area. So they're taking shots at the 49ers because of that. But this list I didn't really understand it. I mean, even a team like Baltimore, when you look at their team, they have a lot of great weapons on defense. But when you look at their offense, other than Lamar Jackson, you're not really looking at the receivers as like super crazy receivers or all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really understand how they were judging this. They didn't put any criteria or anything like that. It was just kind of like who maybe had the biggest stars. And then that's how they kind of rated it, right? So when you put it that way, the 49ers might be, middle of the pack as far as star power, just because the players that we have aren't necessarily superstars in the NFL, but we all know if you're rating them as far as top players at their position, 49ers are going to have a lot of top players as far as effectiveness and so on and so forth, but maybe not just like the superstars that are marquee players in the NFL other than Kittle, really. So if that's how they judged it on, I guess that's probably why they put the 49ers at 16. But overall, I thought the list was pretty trash.
Yeah, the Rams were at 4th. I just wanted to put that out there for everybody.
Good to know. 4th. Wow. 40
But
million.
they have a lot of notable players: Stafford, Ramsey, Aaron. So they have like all of those like superstars, which is what I think this list kind of boiled down to when you look more in depth to it.
Okay, Jack, you go.
Well, when you look at the way that they did the ranking, they tried to make it so that all of the positions were equal. So they didn't, just because you had a top level quarterback, it didn't knock you down on the list. So, you know, the one that kind of jumps out would be the Packers at 7. You know, having the Packers at 7, it makes sense if you look at their overall roster. Their overall roster is pretty solid. I wouldn't put the Packers at 7 though, because I'd be taking Aaron Rodgers off that list at this point because we don't know if he's going to be there. So from a, you know, and then also, you know, go back to like, you know, somebody brought up the Cowboys earlier. Well, when you look at the Cowboys rosters, like let's take the wide receiver position, for example, and that's what they talk about on this list. At wide receiver, they have Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. That 3 is way better than what the 49ers have, you know, in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Nayuk, and then who knows who the third guy is going to be, right? So those are some of the reasons, you know, and they say that even they stayed in there that, you know, the 49ers have a up-and-coming offensive line. The quarterback, you know, decision hasn't been decided yet. There's going to be a change there. They talk about, you know, the interesting rookies in Sermon and Mitchell. I think the issue and what brings the 49ers down to 16 is that they're looking at some of the defensive side. Some of the, you know, I think they're maybe overrating a little bit the loss of Richard Sherman. You know, the loss of Dee Ford. As a pass rusher, you know, they're obviously not putting a whole lot of stock in Ebicom coming back and filling in that role. So, you know, that's an interesting one. And they kind of finish off with saying that they don't expect the 49ers to have a top 5 defense again based off of the talent that they have on that side of the roster. So, you know, 16, I know when you look at the list, they're what are they, 7th in the NFC? There's only 17. Yeah. And there's of the top half, you know, the top half of the NFL, there's only 7 in the, you know, there's more AFC teams.
Are they last in the NFC West?
No, they're second to last. They have Seattle as 4th. So it's in the NFC West, it's the Rams at 4, the Cardinals at 11, and the 49ers at 16. You know, and when you look at that again, though, let's take a look at the Cardinals, for example, because I know that there's folks. I think Grant, you've mentioned, you know, about the talent on the Cardinals. Correct? Yeah,
you know, it's a loaded roster.
You look at the wide receiver position, and you can make an argument that their wide receiver position is better than the 49ers. You know, quarterback situation. A lot of folks are going to say that their quarterback's a top 10 quarterback, even though I would disagree with that. But that's a common thread that you have.
When you factor in the running too, he's very effective, even though he's inconsistent as a thrower for sure.
Right. No, yeah, you've got to throw that in there, and that's what we'll be. And that's something that we'll do with when Trey Lance takes over, right? But as far as a thrower, a guy that's going to win games for you, I don't see him necessarily being a guy that's going to be able to win games game in and game out. He's going to make that exciting play like he did against Buffalo, but he's also going to cost you games along the way. So, I don't know. 16th for the 49ers, I think, is a little low, but when you really read through theirs and you take the time to read through some of these other rankings, they make sense. I mean, I think we'd all agree that Washington has a pretty darn good team. They beat the 49ers last year. They were right there with them. If they improve their quarterback play, which I think people have, they'll be up there too. So the only, like I said, the main one I take is the Packers, because I don't think Rodgers is going to be there, and the Cowboys. That one on defensive side, I don't know if they have as much talent as the 49ers. So I put them right around probably 12, 11, somewhere around there. Based off of if you're looking at positional value being the same across the board, we know that's not really the case once you start playing the games.
It seems to me that if CBS is right, that's not good for the 49ers. This is year 5. You know, they've been building this thing for 5 years, the brick by brick philosophy. It's unacceptable to have the 16th best roster at this point. Now, to the Niners' credit, I think it's a way better roster than this. I think CBS is wrong. I think the fact that they're not weighing quarterbacks above other positions and they still rank the Niners 16th, I mean, that's one of the best things the Niners have going for them is all the pieces beyond the quarterback. And then I really like Trey Lance. I think once he shows himself, this team's going to be ranked higher. But 16th, that is unacceptable. Mediocre after 4 years, unacceptable. And I think, to the Niners' credit, they're wrong. I mean, they have lost some depth. Armstead's expensive, but man,
Grant,
they still have a really good D-line.
Yeah. But you were talking about this earlier in the offseason at some point, how if you look at this roster outside of the quarterback position, it's one of the 10 best rosters in the NFL, maybe. So,
and I like Trey Lance, so I just feel like this got to be a top 10 roster. Now, of course, you got to factor in the injury history in some way, but it doesn't sound like that's why they're knocked down to 16. Like they legitimately think this is a mediocre team. I disagree.
Teams like the Broncos and the Dolphins should not be ahead of them. To me, that those are some teams that are middle of the pack teams who are deep at specific positions. But when you actually look at how their teams have done recently, they're not better than what the 49ers are right now.
I just don't see, where is this coming from? The last few years, the national media was so bullish on the 49ers, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, they're like the 16th best team. Like, really? Okay.
Well, Vegas,
and that's okay.
Maybe this is some of the blowback from the draft thing.
Perhaps. Hey, good point. You burned all these national reporters, made them look stupid, said you were doing a social experiment, and now everyone's like, you know what? Kyle Shanahan's the 13th best head coach in the league. You know what? That roster is – hey, man, that's a good point, Jack. That's a veteran's point of view. I think he's right.
The other thing with this list, though, that does play into the 49ers' favor is that they have six teams that they're going to be playing against in the NFC that are ranked below them. The Seahawks, the Vikings, Bears, Eagles, Falcons. The Lions, Falcons, and Eagles are all among the worst of the four worst in the league. Right. So, and they do say at the beginning of the article that it doesn't have anything to do with what they expect the win-loss record to be.
Well, thanks a lot, CBS. Jeremy, thank you very much as well. He finally caught up live. He's super chatting all day. We only have 4 topics today. We've already gone through 2 of them. If anyone has a question that you would like us to hit in an impromptu fashion, we got that. Otherwise, we can just talk about the stuff we wanted to talk about at length. Okay. Breakout candidates for 2021. We're going to limit the scope to players drafted by this team from 2018 to 2020. Can we also include undrafted free agents in that period or no?
Yes.
I think they should count. We're not going to do 2017 because that draft class consisted of George Kittle and DJ Jones and a bunch of people who aren't on the team anymore. So we're going to start with 2018. How's that sound?
Yep.
Okay. Jack, your turn.
Well, I put a list together. I had a bunch of them. I don't know if you want to just do one per person. And then
why don't you do one, and then we can go around until we're done.
Okay, yeah, cool. No, so I started off with an easy one. I have Brandon Nayuk as my first guy that I expect to be a breakout player. I thought I think he has the ability to be a high-level number 1 receiver in the league. He just needs a quarterback that's going to be able to take advantage of all of his skill. So I have Brandon Nayuk as my top breakout player. It's kind of an easy one, I think, when you look at the fact he was a first-round draft pick in 2020. But I see him taking a big step up in his second year in the league now that he's going to have a full preseason behind him and everything.
Cool.
Good choice. Definitely somebody on my list. Who should I put? I kind of want to go Ambry just to throw it in Ben's face.
No, we're not doing 2021. Just 18 to 20. 18
to
okay.
20.
No rookies.
Right. Don't worry, Suneil. I'll trash our corner.
I'm gonna go Dre Greenlaw, and the reason for that is because I believe that under D'Amico Ryans, this linebacker crew is going to get a lot of opportunities that they may not have been able to get under the previous regime with Salah, just because he is a former linebacker, and I think he's going to play a more aggressive style of defense with these linebackers blitzing more. And I think Fred Warner is going to be, since he's so great at being a cover linebacker, I think that Greenlaw is going to get a lot of opportunities to make some wow moments as far as able to blitz, able to sack the quarterback, able to get into the backfield and wreak havoc. As well as him now going to be having like a lot more responsibility on the defense, just because he is one of the top linebackers. And, the 49er linebacker crew really does, help push that defense moving forward and whatnot. So I think, Drake Greenlaw being in the system for, I think this is going to be his fourth year now, is going to be a level up now. Warner's about to get paid. So Greenlaw is going to be now pushing to make sure that, he's somebody that stays long-term with the 49ers or makes a name for himself if he gets into free agency as well. So I'm going to go with Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah, I think Dre Greenlaw is a really good name to bring up, Suneil. He's definitely someone I heavily considered and kind of got near the top of my list. And Ayuk too, Jack. I just wanted to point out one stat I saw recently is that I think of Ayuk's deep targets down the field, he only caught 3 balls beyond 20 yards. So when we're talking about the quarterback not fitting the receiver, that's what we're talking about. Ayuk needs to get the ball more down the field, and Lance is going to do that. But for me, the breakout candidate of 2021 from all those drafts, it's going to be Mike McGlinchey, I think. And I don't necessarily even think it's going to be because of Mike specifically now. I think he'll be much improved from last season. I think we heard about how mentally what he was dealing with in 2020, what all these players were dealing with. We saw his weight change during the offseason, but I think one of the most important things for him is going to be that this team is going to be running the ball more in 2021, and they're going to have a better support system around Mike McGlinchey. Alex Mack is going to be there. Aaron Banks is expected to take over as the starter at some point. So with that being more the strength of their side of the offensive line, I think that's just going to make life easier and easier for a guy like Mike McGlinchey. And when the 49ers eventually do move on to Trey Lance and go away from Jimmy Garoppolo, I think they're going to run the ball even more with Trey Lance, and we know that's where Mike McGlinchey succeeds. So I think this is the kind of thing where last year he was not set up for the best opportunity. He was put in bad positions. It was a rotating center position. There were all kinds of issues on that offensive line, and with that being the most solidified position to me, I think McGlinchey could have a huge comeback in 2021, and he can really justify, not necessarily what the 49ers spent on him in the pick, but the 49ers are going to have to extend him soon. And I think after, and that could be next offseason. So I think if he has a really, really good season this year, things could all lead the right way for Mike in the future. So I'm really confident in him in that aspect.
Wow, confident in Mike McGlinchey. I admire it. Hey, I'm not gonna knock it. I admire that confidence. I'm gonna go with someone else though. I'm gonna go back to the wide receiver position. I mean, I know everyone's expecting me to say Ross Dwelley. I'd like it to be Ross Dwelley, but I feel like Kyle Shanahan has something personally against him because it never happens. He has the same role in the offense every single year. You get 20 catches, you catch 18 of them. Sorry, that's it. So I feel like Kyle has a very specific way he wants to run his offense on third down. He wants 3 wide receivers on the field. And someone's got to replace that Kendrick Bourne slot receiver possession guy on third down. And it's not Richie James Jr. I love Richie James Jr. It's not what he does. It's not Mohamed Sanu. It's not. Sanu is a practice squad guy at this time. God love him for trying to become Trey Lance's best friend or whatever he's doing. I see what you're doing, Mohamed, and is smart, but you're expendable. I'm sorry. The guy that I think is going to assert himself just based on a few practices I've seen, Juwan Jennings. I mean, I think he's always been the backup plan in case Jalen Hurd can't come around, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have any confidence in Jalen Hurd playing a full season or a game. So if and when he does the Jalen Hurd thing, then Juwan Jennings is right there to step up. And you got Jalen Hurd, who's played 12 games in the last 5 years, and Juwan Jennings, who was there throughout all of OTAs, and they didn't have mini camp, but he looked really good in OTAs. I'm going to say Juwan Jennings is going to be the surprise breakout player. He's going to get some critical targets on third down and in the red zone too, at Ross Dwelley's expense. So anyone else you guys want to mention before we move on, just for the sake of it?
I think the biggest breakout player is going to be Trey Sermon, just because of the role he's going to have. I know. I'm just saying. What about
Kinlaw?
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That is going to, in reality, is going to be Trey Sermon over a lot of these guys.
All
but,
right, what about Kinlaw, though?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kinlaw has a great opportunity just because of the depth that's around him now, and it's his second season. And, I think with Bosa coming back, that's going to help everybody on the D-line. So, I think Kinlaw could have a big upswing as well.
What about Mosley, though? What about Manuel Mosley, though?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody's high on Mosley, but somehow not high on the rookie cornerbacks. But all right.
Let's give Mosley some credit. He's going to be his first year entering the offseason as a starter. He's going to have all the starter reps. He already took them in OTAs. He's got a new number. Was he 4? Took Nick Mullen's number with the quickness. I think Emmanuel Mosley could be a breakout player. It's a good call. He's definitely going to get more playing time than Jawan Jennings. So let me take the Emmanuel Mosley answer. I like that. All right, this is our last topic.
Grant,
what?
You missed a super chat like 2 minutes.
Oh my God! Hold on. What did I miss?
It's 2:28 is the time.
Oh my God!
Colin Donlevy.
Oh my goodness, Colin! And I missed a couple yesterday on a live stream, and I have them. So we'll talk about those at the end. Just because I wanted, people gave me like $10. Colin says, "What do the Niners have to do to finish out games when they have the lead?" Ooh, that's a good question. Ben, why don't you start us off? How can the Niners finish out games better?
Run the ball with Trey Sermon.
Hey.
I think we talked about this a little during the offseason, but if you just look at what the Bucs did in the Super Bowl with Leonard Fournette, they showed you how valuable those big backs can be in those type of games where you really need to wear down teams. And I feel like that's the type of running back the 49ers haven't had with Kyle at all. So I feel like Trey Sermon can be that perfect type of running back to just wear teams down in the third and fourth quarter, so you don't have to rely on Mostert to get you first down after first down when you're trying to close out games, or another back who I don't think is filling that role right now. So I think Sermon, to me, he's going to make a huge impact. And I think especially, like I said, at the end of games.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that the 49ers are going to be able to do is stay ahead of the chains, right? So doing that with a strong running game and also having a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over are going to be, two major things that help push the 49ers over the hump as far as being able to keep a lead and then, even extend that lead. I think when Trey Lance week 1 starts again, we're gonna have a quarterback that could actually use his feet to get first downs as well, which is going to be another weapon that the 49ers haven't had. And I think that's going to be really, really important, especially in, those 3rd and 5, 3rd and, 6-ish realms where, we only had the opportunity for one of our quarterbacks to throw because nobody could really was mobile enough to get it running. I think having Trey being able to, with his feet, is going to keep getting those first downs, be able to help run clock off and, maintain the ball. So I think that's going to be the main things.
Yep. I agree with both of them. That's 100% correct. I think I mentioned this the other day on I don't know if I was with you, Grant, or on another one that I was doing, but the ability to run the ball late in games is so important. And the 49ers have really struggled with that quite a bit during Shanahan's tenure. I know they did a pretty good job of it in the playoffs in 2019 in the divisional round game and in the championship game of just continuing to pound that ball. But that's something that they haven't really been able to do because I don't think their offensive line had the size, and you've seen them bulk up there. They don't, the running backs are a little bit smaller, so they don't have guys that can really pound it up inside. And they've added bulk there as well. So I think that they understand the need to do that, and I think that's why I think we're going to see a transition in the offensive style a little bit this year.
Good answers. I'm going to go defense here. You guys laid it out on offense. On defense, I think Nick Bosa is really critical because when you have a lead, the other team's passing. That was the closer in 2019. Like when the other team was in obvious drop back situations, Nick Bosa would just, if your left tackle was anything less than elite, game was over. So if Nick Bosa can be that guy again, Niners are in a good spot. If not, then the Niners don't have like a dominant pass rusher other than him. Like it's a dominant pass rusher. So all of a sudden then DeMeco Ryans would have to get real creative like Saleh did last year, and it can be done. It's just his pressures would have to be on point. And I don't know. I mean, he can just Xerox Saleh's pressures from last year, but a lot more of the onus would go on DeMeco Ryans closing out games if he didn't have Nick Bosa. And honestly, Robert Saleh wasn't so good at closing out games his first 2 seasons until he got Nick Bosa. And then what he did last year was really good too. But they also lost a lot of games last year. It's not like he was closing out games. So Nick Bosa is the closer. That's what they call him. He needs to play. How about that? Bosa. Jeremy Smith says, so real Suneil got it right. Yeah, that's a first. First potential every down back the Niners have had since Gore.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's true.
You're my new best friend.
Okay. So I had some more super chats that I missed last night with Jesse Naylor. So I'm going to read them out. The first one was from The Mike. Gave me $5. The Mike. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm going to get you in a minute. The mic said, to follow this, they like Jimmy and he isn't bad, but Trey is a team guy and wants to work for it. Keep it up, boys. I'd like to be on one day. We were talking about the fact that Trey Lance is being so proactive this offseason, meeting up with players, organizing things, putting it on social media so fans can follow along. And basically how the stark oppositeness from Jimmy Garoppolo. And we were saying, like, what's up with his, radio silence, his not really doing anything. And what this guy was saying is it just shows that Trey Lance is a team guy and he wants to be here. And I guess it's fair to question that with Jimmy Garoppolo. I guess that's what he said. Do you guys notice that Jimmy Garoppolo has been kind of quiet this offseason? And do you think anything of it?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's not even that Jimmy Garoppolo is quiet this offseason, because Jimmy Garoppolo is always quiet. It's just that, to me, Trey Lance is over-communicating to the fans. He's putting everything out he can possible on social media, every workout, every throw, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if he's doing it on purpose, but I think it will specifically get the fans behind him faster than looking behind Jimmy. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just on Ben's point, I don't think Trey's actually putting out all this stuff. It's the players that are with him that are putting out stuff. So he's obviously the common denominator into all of these videos, which is great. But I don't take too much out of it on the Jimmy side, because like Ben said, Jimmy usually in the offseason is quiet. Even during the season, he's quiet, right? It's not like there's anything that you're seeing from Jimmy. But what I am seeing is more enthusiasm from the players about Trey than they have had about Jimmy. So like, for example, the whole relationship between Kittle and Jimmy, they're wearing each other on these shirts and stuff like that. Well, now Kittle is taking Trey to Vegas. True. And now Kittle is saying how excited he is about Trey, in the media and stuff like that. So I'm taking more from the players. They're the ones, the teammates that are putting it out on social media, the teammates that are going out of their way to hang out with Trey, to put out stuff in interviews and stuff like that. That's what I'm taking more from just what Trey or what Jimmy.
Yeah, that's the main takeaway for sure. Not about what they're posting on social media, but how these players are reacting to a 21-year-old kid who's definitely taking the bull by the horns and trying to take the starting job, right? I mean, he's doing everything you would expect Jimmy would do, and all the players are like, man, I like this. Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
No, it's okay. All I was gonna say was I tweeted this out a few weeks ago. Is that if Garoppolo wants 49ers fans to get behind him, he just needs to go full on Kendrick Bourne this offseason. And to start posting a bunch of stuff. And that's just not his style. He's never done it in the past. He's not going to do it. But that's the whole thing is you don't see him working out. You don't see what he's doing other than when he's at the facility and the media is there. And so, from that standpoint, he's behind the game with getting the fan perception. And I understand the players are kind of getting behind him, and we're hearing that. I'm pretty sure that he hung out with all these guys in the past, or he probably still does. It's just that it's not getting blown up because he's not the new fresh piece of pie for everybody to try to take a bite out of.
I'm sure the players all like Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm sure they still like him. I like Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a nice guy, but that doesn't mean that he's necessarily a team guy, that he still wants to be a 49er. I mean, he wasn't playing the last couple of weeks. He was up in the box with no Niner gear on. So maybe they're like, well, we like Jimmy, but we also like Trey. He's a nice guy too, and he really wants to be on this team. Whereas Jimmy, I don't really know where his head is at. He doesn't return my texts. I don't know. All I know is Trey Lance is doing all the things a franchise quarterback should do, organizing things, working out, and Jimmy's just sort of letting him. I guess that's the perception. Like, Trey Lance is taking your job. He's like, I'm going to organize it. I'm going to work out with Debo. And Jimmy's like, fine, I don't care. That's cool. I'm in Chicago doing my thing. And it's like, well, hey, if Drew Brees, when Drew Brees was in San Diego and the Chargers drafted Phillip Rivers, I doubt Drew Brees was like, hey, Phillip, you just organize the offseason. I'm going to chill until the Chargers get rid of me. And I'm not saying that's what Jimmy's doing. It's just, it's kind of the perception, right?
Yeah, I think it's it's kind of consistent with what Jimmy has done in the offseason. He's done every offseason. I think the most we've seen from him, like even outside of the facility, is those Levi's commercials. So
they're really good Levi's commercials.
And you know what? Jimmy is a handsome man. I'm not there. No hate for me coming.
Terrific representative of Levi's, I've got to say.
Oh, absolutely. But the point is that like nothing's changed from Jimmy. And I think that's what you've been harping on, Grant, is that it's like he's not really reacting to this at all, which to me, I don't really know. It doesn't seem
Go knock yourself out, Trey. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, two things I want to just hit on real quick. I think last year in 2020, I'm pretty sure the Garoppolo was part of getting everybody to
exactly
for the workouts.
Yeah.
Last year. And then when you talk about Garoppolo sitting up in the booth at the end of the season, those last couple of weeks, I think that was really team driven more than Jimmy driven. I think, and I understand that they went ahead and they brought, let George Kittle play and those kind of things, but I think what that starts to show where the 49ers might not really have a belief that Jimmy Garoppolo is their long-term solution. By not playing him, because he has that injury guarantee in his contract. If he'd gone out and got hurt in week 16 or 17, now they're locked into $25 million or whatever his cap is for this year, and they'd be hit with it for the following year as well. So you go ahead and you keep that guy out because you're not expecting him to be around for the next 2 years, whereas George Kittle, he's a guy that is a foundational piece that you're expecting to be here. And his contract is just on the upswing, and so that's a guy, you're not worried. You're not going to necessarily get rid of him, and if he injures himself, he'll be back by the time the season starts. I think that kind of plays into that whole thing too.
Jeremy says, I think you're getting a big bottle of wine from your dad. I bet my dad a bottle of wine on who's going to start week 1. I got Lance. The notion that Lance isn't starting is nonsense. I mean, he's up against Jimmy. That's not nice, Jeremy. What did Jimmy do to you? Come on.
The one thing that, too. The one thing that I think is kind of, one of the biggest debates have been who gives you the better chance to win a Super Bowl, right? And especially with a lot of these players coming off are on 1-year deals, not knowing if they're going to be back with the 49ers next season. They really want to go in and have the best season right now. To see a lot of these players really surrounding themselves around Trey, going out and working with Trey versus working out with Jimmy or whatever the case may be. I think the players are kind of saying who they feel like is going to give them the best chance to win as well, which is, something that is important because, one of the biggest things is don't start Trey. Rookies don't help you win Super Bowls. Jimmy G's your best chance to win a Super Bowl. But if the players are trying to get this guy up to speed as quick as they are, it kind of makes them feel it makes me feel at least they think that, maybe Trey gives them a better chance.
Well, on that subject, Barry at Baller 18 says, I felt some momentum shifting to Lance starting week 1, but seeing all the Jimmy Garoppolo picks last night with Jerry Rice took that away. Seems like they rolling with Jimmy. What do you guys think?
Is Trey signed yet?
No.
I thought that was the reason.
So I think that might be part of it, but I also feel like the other part of that is even if Trey was signed, if they put out all their pictures and all the pictures were with Trey Lance and not Jimmy Garoppolo, that's the worst PR move you can make on.
You're killing Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value more than you already have.
Yeah, and they in this front office and regime, or not the coaching staff, the front office has this imagination that Jimmy has any value right now, so that would destroy all of it there and then. So that's why I think they didn't have any picks with him.
Yeah. See, I look at that and I say Jerry Rice is no longer a 49er and was traded away, and Jimmy is foreshadowing that he's no longer going to be a 49er.
Foreshadowing in an all 49ers roundtable. I like that.
Go ahead, Jack.
Rhetorical devices. What's up?
No, I was just going to say, I think the reason that it kind of went out that way is everything that was on that show last night was pre-recorded.
Yes.
So I have a feeling that could have been recorded even before the draft was even done. Because they've known for quite a while that they're going to be going with these red uniforms. So who knows at what point that whole shoot was done. And I don't put a whole lot of stock into any of that as far as last night. The one thing I will say about that last night real quick is that somebody in the 49ers front office has got to go and they've got to look at the way Jerry Rice wore his socks, because if they wear those all white socks, that's just a terrible look. And that's not even the way they wore their socks in 1994.
Hold on. I want to stick with this pick thing, with the picture thing. I think there is something to it. Like when Colin Kaepernick was falling out of favor with the 49ers in 2016, they used to put out pictures from OTAs. Remember this, Jack? And he was just never in any of the pictures. Blaine Gabbert was here's Blaine, smiling, throwing, running. It's can we get some starting quarterback pictures? No. So it's but I mean, that's not a reflection of the coaching staff. It's not. That's a reflection of the PR staff, which is taking direction from the front office and ownership. So to me, I think it's been pretty clear that Jed York and John Lynch want to get something for Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're not just about to cut him willingly. And I think this is all feeds into that. I mean, create the perception that Jimmy's still the quarterback, even though it's ridiculous. 3 first-round picks in a third. Are you kidding? If the Bears knew that, we'd all be like, that's your quarterback, man. You're really going to stick with Andy Dalton? No, like, of course you're not. But that's what the Niners are trying to sell, and I think all of this goes in with that. Like, we still like Jimmy. We still like Jimmy. We still like Jimmy. All right. If you say it 18 more times, I might believe you. And now Bay Area Baller believes him. So maybe they succeeded last night in creating the impression that maybe that was the number one goal they had, just like subliminal messaging. Jimmy, picture of Jimmy. Look at his face. Look at his jawline.
I think you have to be right, because when you look at that by itself, maybe not, but that coupled with the fact that your first round draft pick was a quarterback, and this whole 45-minute whatever thing, they didn't talk about quarterbacks once. You know what I mean? That to me is it combined with what you're saying, I think is the biggest thing, because Kyle Shanahan isn't big on lying. And if they ask Kyle Shanahan right now, is Jimmy G your starting quarterback? I think he would have like a really uncomfortable look on his face and say like, it's a competition, you know what I mean? So I think they made it a point to not ask Shanahan, not ask Lynch, not ask Warner or Kittle, because I think that the answers might give away what they're really. I
mean, imagine not mentioning Trey Lance at the state of the franchise 2 months after trading away everything to get him. Normally you'd be like, yeah, we're better than we were in 2019. We have Trey Lance. We just got the future franchise quarterback. This guy's going to be our quarterback for 20 years. That you would think you could say things like that at a state of a franchise event for season ticket holders. I mean, there's no follow-up questions from guys like me. You can say that, but no. Jimmy's still here. Like the divorcee's still in the guest room. We got to be gentle about this and see if we can get someone to take Jimmy off our hands. We like Jimmy. Jimmy's great. What are you talking about?
Can you imagine if Jacksonville goes out in their state of the franchise and doesn't talk about their first pick?
They just don't mention, or the Jets just forget to mention Zach Wilson. We're going to be really good this year because we got Morgan Moses.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's like it'd be really funny if all the Jags PR pictures were just Minshew over and over and over. Everyone would be kind of confused, right? First, like I think
or Beathard,
like Beathard, that too, right? But like some people like to blame certain 49ers picks on like Adam Peters or oh, this person made this pick. To me, this is like a total Al Guido, PR, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's the Jimmy pump and dump.
It's the pump and dump.
It's exactly what it is. They're
definitely the pump and dump.
They did this as much as they can.
They did this with Vance McDonald. First practice, Kyle Shanahan chewed him out, and then they spent the rest of the offseason saying, Vance McDonald is really good. Hold on. He's actually really good. He's improving his blocking. We like Vance McDonald. One good preseason game where he caught like 2 passes, traded for nothing. So, yeah, the Niners are well-versed in the pump and dump.
Grant, who was the offensive lineman that they did this with when Shanahan first came in? I can't remember his name.
Trent Brown.
Trent Brown. That's another example of a guy they just pumped and dumped. So
okay, one more super chat from last night that I missed. This is from DudeBro715. DudeBro715, you're out there. I'm getting your super chat right now. You did not waste your $4.99. DudeBro says some people tip $4.99. Some people tip $5. What's up with that? So people are like, I'm just going to take 1 cent away. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I've never given a super chat. How does that work? Dubro says, it feels like a win-win situation with Jimmy and Trey. Who do you really feel gives us the best chance to win this year?
I'm going to stick with Trey Lance because of Jimmy Garoppolo's price tag. I've been over it like I don't know how many times, but
yeah, we've talked about it.
You can't win with Jimmy Garoppolo making that much money. It doesn't make sense. It's insane.
I think it's Trey just because of the mobility. I think people don't understand how important being able to pick up first downs with your feet. The only reason why Kyler Murray is ranked in the top 10 on everybody's list is not because of what he's been doing with his arm.
That's true.
And the same thing with Lamar Jackson. It's not because of their wickedness with their arm and their accuracy and all that kind of stuff. It's because of this dynamic that you have with your legs that makes it really, really hard on defenses to be able to defend. And that's something that the 49ers are getting with Trey Lance that they don't have with Jimmy G. So even without the contract, all that kind of stuff, that extra weapon that you have is going to just open up everything for Kyle Shanahan to be able to do what he wants to do, on offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think Trey Lance gives them just as good of an opportunity to win. I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl team this year regardless. I just don't see them going to the Super Bowl this year. So take that whole part of it, a rookie guy making 13.5% of the salary cap, take that part out of it. I don't see anything going on with Jimmy Garoppolo that Trey Lance can't do this year. And when you go back and watch, Jimmy, go back and watch the Cardinals game. That was the one game where he's healthy, right, from 2020. There's times that you can see where there's plays to be made with his feet where he's not able to do it because he doesn't have the speed to be able to outrun the guy on the edge to get to the corner and pick up a 5 or 10-yard gain. And you see that even at the end of the game, there's a time where he could scramble and pick up a first down, and instead he's got to throw it and chuck it into the end zone and hope for Trent Taylor to make a fantastic play. Yeah. So
I've listened to the arguments where people say that Jimmy Garoppolo gives the Niners a better chance to win, and it's always like the intangible stuff. Like, well, he's more experienced. He knows the offense better. He knows the speed of the game better. Like, okay, well, here's the argument for Trey Lance. He's more talented. He's much more talented. Like, that doesn't count. Like, to me, it's like going back to the mid-'60s and having, like, 21-year-old Cassius Clay fight some dude in his prime. And people are like, well, this guy's in his prime. He's fought more than Cassius Clay. Okay, well, Cassius Clay is better than him. Muhammad Ali is better than him. And the fact that Muhammad Ali hasn't fought as many fights is not really germane to what's going to happen in this fight. He's going to knock him out because he's way better than him. I was like, can we say that? He's way more talented than Jimmy. And when we see, like, wow, he rolled out. Wow, he threw downfield. Wow, he's got some juice on his throws. Wow, he made a guy miss. Just be like, well, this isn't really a fair competition. That's kind of what I don't care that he's 21. I don't care. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, people can say Patrick Mahomes is a little inexperienced. Like, he's just better. It's kind of what matters.
Matt Flynn was more experienced than Russell Wilson. Didn't matter. Didn't help him in that quarterback competition.
Tony Romo is more experienced than Dak was. I mean, we can go down the list. If you're better, you're better.
Yeah, Jack, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, because over in the comments, they're talking about, does Trey Lance, why does he have to be somebody like Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson? I think that's not really what we're talking about here.
No, that's not what we're saying.
No, we're talking about a guy who, when he has to move around in the pocket, can actually move and take off, and he's going to get you a first down. He's going to be able to take off and get to the sidelines and get out of bounds and pick up a first down.
We're talking about a guy that throws like Drew Brees and runs like Lamar Jackson. That's what we're trying to talk about with Trey Lance.
He can develop into a classic drop back pocket quarterback, but when he does move, he's going to be one of the more dynamic quarterbacks in the league right away. I still think he's more dynamic than Justin Fields. Justin Fields is very fast when he decides to go, but I think there is a spontaneity to Trey Lance's game that takes him over the top, and it's why I think the Niners made the right call. We have a couple more super chats. Jason says sometimes it automatically puts $4.99 in the super chat amount so they don't change it to $5. Jason spent a round flat $5 to explain that. Jason, thank you very much. That was very generous of you. Hold on, we got $6.99. You don't normally get $6.99 in the super chat, but I'm not mad about it. It's Ken Bone. Cohn phone, what's up? He says in 94, we got Sanders to get us over the hump to win the Super Bowl. What free agent or trade would you do for us to win the Super Bowl this year? Justin Houston, Stephon Gilmore, all day. Anyone else you guys want?
I think it's going to depend on what happens mid-season. So I think we got to wait and see. To be determined.
Melvin Ingram.
Any corner.
Jeremy Clark says, is this a similar situation as when Montana was on his way out in favor of Steve Young, but Montana was still the face of all the PR for the 49ers? Montana won 4 Super Bowls, man. Yeah. We don't ever need to compare Jimmy to Joe Montana again.
Jeremy, my dude, how are we putting those two in the same sentence?
It feels more like Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick to me. It does.
I don't remember it being that way, but I don't remember that at all. For me, it was 91 came around. Montana was hurt, and I think what happened is going into 91, Montana was still trying to play, but he ended up being not able to, and so Young took over. It wasn't really till 92 when he took the reins. I think that's what happened.
Let's stop pretending like we can answer this question. Only Jack has the real perspective to answer this one. I was 2.
I was about to say I wasn't alive.
So I don't know. I remember the Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick thing. I remember that very closely. I got to defer to Jack on this one. All right. Did we get them all? I think we got them all. All right. Last one is Ben's topic. So I'm going to let Ben give the preamble. This is how the 49ers allocate their resources and their positional spending.
Yeah, so I sent you guys a link with this too, and I'll put it out on Twitter later for everybody if they want to check it out. But if you go to Spot Track, you can see where teams rank in positional spending in the NFL, this is how much they spend on quarterback compared to the rest of the NFL, so on and so forth. And what I specifically found when looking at that is the 49ers are overinvested in their defense right now. And what I mean by that is if you look, the 49ers are, well, and I'm looking at this right now, 5th in terms of the NFL in defensive line and how much in compared to the rest of the NFL and how much they're spending on it, and 15th in secondary. The problem with that is that their linebackers are super cheap right now, but they're going to have to pay Fred Warner soon. So in terms of how the money is getting spread out over their defense, they're going to have to allocate a lot of their cap resources towards that linebacker room, which they haven't been for the last 3 or 4 years. So they're going to have to find some other way to make up that money. Now, a big part of that is going to be getting rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, getting him off the books for the 49ers. But I think it's a bigger philosophy issue with the team where they spend so much draft capital and resources on the defensive line. I mean, they traded for D Ford. They picked up Javon Kinlaw. They spent how many first-round picks on defensive linemen, but they won't put the same sort of resources or same sort of attention to the secondary. And I think that's really going to hurt this team in the long term, because when they do have to invest in Fred Warner, when they have to give him all that money, some part of the defense is going to suffer. And to me, I think because the way their secondary is set up right now, most of those guys are on 1 or 2 year deals. They don't have a long-term answer at that position. Versus if you look at a team like, and Grant, this was actually the first Cohn phone I did forever ago. If you remember it, I was talking about the Bucs and how they structured their salary cap, and specifically how the Bucs had a lot invested in the defensive line, but then they spent a ton of draft capital in their secondary. They spent first, second, third round picks year after year on safeties and corners. So I just don't know if the 49ers can survive the way they're allocating resources right now, where they're overinvesting so much money in the defensive line, and then they're relying on year-by-year guys in their secondary positions. And I think this is especially going to hurt them when they do pay Fred Warner. So I just worry about the long-term future of this team in terms of how they've built their defense, because it's too overly reliant on that pass rush right now. And if anything were to happen, and if that pass rush were to fall off in any way, you can kiss those Super Bowl chances goodbye. So I just think they need to get smarter about how they allocate resources in the future. And I think a big part of that's going to be Trey Lance. He's going to help them out a lot. Yeah, it's going to help them in terms of that. They can go and overspend on their secondary if they really want to, or grab another offensive lineman, or go get another weapon. But to me, they have to cohesively make that decision. Right now, they're kind of just stringing things along, and they don't seem to have a long-term plan in place. So my point is that when you do make this pick with Trey Lance, like the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes a few years ago, you need to plan this out long-term. And I just don't know if the 49ers have done that yet. And I want to see how they're going to react, because they certainly will have the opportunity to do it this season.
So I have to disagree with Ben once again when it comes to the cornerback position, because I think the 49ers are doing this the right way. Because on the defense, if you think about the star player, if you think about the star players in the NFL and who have actually moved through trade, they're always cornerbacks. Jalen Ramsey, the guy the guy that went to Marlon Humphreys, Darius Slay, Marcus Peters, Lattimore, all of these guys. So I think the 49ers are seeing where they can get people that aren't drafted to them. And it's not the defensive line. It's not the linebackers, so it's let us stir up players like the defensive line, like the linebackers with our own guys, where we're using capital and, signing guys, all that kind of stuff. Because honestly, as far as if you look at how the 49ers are set up, their defensive line, their linebacking core, and their safeties are their strength. The cornerbacks, there's always going to be a weakness. And that weakness is, they've already decided, is going to be cornerback. We're always going to just patch up at cornerback, because they are going to have that's just on the 4 levels. That's the one. We can't be strong at every single level. There's not one team that you could say has strength at every single level. So it's so I think that when I was looking at the percentages, it made sense, right? It's about 50-50 when you go how much is in the offense, how much is in the defense. And then the quarterback is really high right now because obviously we have Jimmy G's contract, and then the linebackers are really low. I think that's going to flip obviously next season when Warner's contract's on there and Jimmy G's contract's off. But as far as like, I mean, I've been hearing for the last however many years that the 49ers are just going to fall off the map because they don't know how to, they're like resources and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, yo, Parag makes it work. It's going to be fine. And you could look at a team like the Rams that constantly just keep throwing first round picks and signing everybody and all that kind of stuff. And they stay competitive as well. So this, I don't know, this whole long-term model, I think times have changed. Before there wasn't stars that were moving in free agency. There weren't stars that were requesting trades and stuff like that. So a lot has changed as far as how teams are built. It's not just through the draft. Obviously, draft is number one. But when it comes to cornerbacks, I'm cool with the whole patch and play. You don't need to put a first round unless one drops to you where it fits. I don't think you should reach for a first, reach for a second for a corner because, you know, you're able to get these guys that are late 20s that still could play, that'll go to a team like the 49ers and, you know, be a corner.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is I think that it makes sense based off of what we've heard from the 49ers front office that they're at fifth in the NFL in positional spending for the defensive line. John Lynch and has stated many times that he wants to build through that pass rush. And that's where he thinks that, you know, you get that pass rush and that's going to help out the rest of the defense across the board. So for me, having them at fifth in the NFL and the percentage that they're at, that makes a lot of sense. And that number is going to probably stay around the same, maybe a little bit higher, because you're going to have Nick Bosa contract coming up in a couple of years, and D Ford will fall off, and D Ford is not that much anymore because of the restructuring they did there. And when you look at their, on top of that, they're still, you know, at the offensive line is their second highest at 18.2%. So it goes along with the philosophy that the front office has stated all along, is that you build up front, and if you get the stuff up front, you can build around it. But you've got to build, have the offensive. The lines are where the games win and loss, and that's the way that they attack building the roster. And you're seeing that through their positional spending.
I think they're too invested in the defensive line. If they give Nick Bosa a second contract, they're going to be spending huge money on him and Eric Armstead. Huge. And the reason I think I'm more in favor of spending on corners and wide receivers is they're just cheaper. You can get the best corner in the league for about $15 million. You can get the best wide receiver in the league for about $15, $16 million. And I think what's going to happen is I'm not certain the Niners are going to give Nick Bosa a second contract. He's going to have to stay healthy the next 2 years to get that. And if he does, then I guess he'll get it. But I think it's also possible that in the future, if Trey Lance shows that he's a superstar, if Ayuk shows that he's a superstar, if Debo shows that he's a superstar, those could be the three highest paid players on the team in a few years. That they could change. Like all of a sudden, if you have this kind of quarterback, do you want to keep investing in the defensive line, or do you want to give him some wide receivers who he's been working with? I mean, we could see a total shift in roster building philosophy to an offensive. I mean, Bill Belichick did the same thing. He had a defensive team. They started giving Tom Brady a lot of money. They shipped Chandler Jones out of there during his prime, and he's great, but they just couldn't afford to spend on everything. So they started sacrificing from the D-line. I think it's possible the Niners could do that down the line if Trey Lance, Debo, and Ayuk show that they're worth the second contracts. I'm not sure. I mean, Trey Lance going to have to show a lot. Those second contracts are expensive for quarterbacks, and maybe in 4 years the Niners would prefer to just get another rookie quarterback. I'm not saying they will, but Lance is going to have to prove something. It's one thing to say he's going to be great throwing 19 passes a game on a rookie deal. It's another thing to say he's going to be worth $40 million a year and he can throw 40 times a game if necessary. I'm not saying he can't, but that's growth period. And Jeremy asks that question right now. Do you guys think Lance will ever get to a point where he'll throw more than 30 times a game? Will he need to? Yeah, he'll need to get that second contract. Yeah. Not initially, but yeah, he'll need to.
I think he will progress into this eventually. I think it's just a matter of it happening over time. I think what will happen is they'll run the ball as much as possible in the first 2 seasons with Lance, and then they'll move more and more towards the pass as he gets comfortable. And going to something you said, Grant, maybe they'll invest more in wide receivers. Maybe they'll invest in another weapon for him. So I think it all depends on how things pan out. But I could certainly see a situation where he's eventually throwing 30, 35 times a game. But that's not going to be anytime soon.
No. I'm going to disagree. And it has nothing to do with Lance. It has everything to do with Kyle Shanahan. So if you look at Kyle Shanahan offensively run teams, they're always bottom half or bottom, like last 5 in pass attempts per game by their quarterback. And this was even when he was in Atlanta with Matt Ryan. I think he was throwing like right at 30, right around there. And every year with the 49ers has been under 30 reps per game, 30 throws per game, whomever the quarterback is. So I think this is just a philosophy of Kyle Shanahan. He's a run first offensive coordinator. So whomever's run, no matter how powerful that quarterback is, I think it's going to be less than 30. You're going to see average. And it's going to be off of play action. Play action only works if your running game is really, really strong. So even though Lance is going to have a great arm and can throw more, I don't think he will be asked to, just because of the way Kyle Shanahan runs his offense.
Yeah, the way that I see this question is, I think that the reason he's pointing out 30 times a game is because that's not something that Lance even really did in college. Mm-hmm. So when I look at this question, I'll refer you guys to either you go back to 2012 again with Washington when they had RG3 there, or go back to Ben Roethlisberger's first couple of seasons in Pittsburgh. I think those are the two that you can go back to and see how they're going to progress with Trey Lance. I would expect years 1 and 2 with Lance to be really run heavy, like Suneil said, and by year it was the same way with Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. It wasn't until year 3 where Roethlisberger really started to throw the ball more often, and the reason that he was doing that was in part because he'd been in the league for 2 years, and so he was getting his feet under him. They also had lost some of their running game, so he needed to throw the ball more. And I think we're going to see that with him here. You know, I wouldn't expect him to throw over 30 times a game, probably more than once or twice this year, if at all, because I really think that the focus is going to be on pounding the football. But I think he's going to grow into a guy that can do that by year 3, where he's able to do it more than once or twice a season. And I think that's kind of where Jeremy was going with that question.
Jaeger805 says, do you guys think the injury history will affect the way the players will want to play this year? Grant, you should get Ramba. Do I think the injury history will affect the way the players want to play this year? No, they're going to play as hard as they play. Yeah, sorry, Jaeger. No, they're going to play 100% because that's what they do. Kyle Sullivan says, the greatest quality of Levi's Stadium is that it has seats where fans can sit in. Good job, Jed. With that said, what impact will it have on the Niners knowing the faithful will be back to witness glory? I think they're going to play harder now because the fans are there. I think last year they couldn't play as hard as they wanted to. They're only playing 50% because they didn't have the fans. And it was like, you know what? If fans aren't watching, what's the point? And now the fans are back. They're going to give it their real effort. That's what I think.
Yeah, maybe they'll stay healthier. I mean, who knows? You know, they could really turn everything around.
85% of the franchise, state of the franchise, was about the fans.
Yeah,
85%.
That was one of the biggest takeaways from the whole thing, was how everybody talked.
Forget Trey Lance. The fans are going to propel this team to the Super Bowl.
I think that I think the 49ers played hard last season, but one thing I think more than a lot of teams, 49ers play better when they're having fun. And you didn't see that like fun that they have, and I think that is off of the fans. You're going to see
the whole year.
Yeah, and Kittle, right? But I think you're going to see more dancing. You're going to see more of the first down that Kittle used to do. You're going to see like a lot more.
They lost their best dancer on the team by far.
Brandon Ayuk is going to step into that role and be gritting his way. There is way to the end zone over and over.
Big dancing shoes that he needs to fill. Serious dancing shoes.
If we could be serious for a second, though, I think one thing that will help that will really help the team is that you think about what they were dealing with at the end of last season, being in Arizona, not being home, being away from the facility. I just think being back and having things normal, that's going to make things easier for this team next year. Not the fans necessarily, but the fact that they're not staying in a hotel where they can't even go down the hall and talk to their teammates. That's going to make a big difference more than anything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's our show. We went way over time today. We went an hour and 8 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for the questions, for the super chats, whether you donated $4.99 or $5. It's all the same to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'll be back in less than an hour with Jason Aponte talking about totally different things than what we talked about this time. It's going to be a way different show. Please tune in. Thank you very much to the All49ers crew and everyone here. We'll be back. I'll be back here tomorrow with a different roundtable with different faces at 1. So stay tuned to that. I'll be back. Goodbye.